So, hello everyone, and welcome. Today is I have the pleasure of interviewing Christina Colon-Rodriguez, a professional with over a decade of experience in digital and strategic marketing, particularly in the hospitality, tourism, and luxury brand sectors. For those who may not know her, so Christina serves right now as Senior Marketing Manager at Reunion Resort and Golf Club, a high-end resort located in Central Florida, Orlando. So throughout her career, Christina has led multi-channel campaigns, managed digital reputation, produced audiovisual content, and taken charge of key initiatives such as brand relaunches, mergers, and crisis communication. Thank you so much, Christina, for being here with me today.
Yeah, my pleasure.
We'll be talking about the tourism and the hospitality sector, and I would like to kick off this conversation with the following question: How do
Sure.
you approach building a marketing strategy when the main product isn't something tangible, but rather an experience like those offered in the hospitality, tourism, and event industry?
So when we look at brand strategy as a whole, right, it doesn't matter really if you're selling something that's tangible, like baby wipes, right? Or if you're selling an experience, as we do in hospitality, right? At the end of the day, it's about how it makes you feel. It's about how it makes you feel and the memories that are stirred up when you see a particular brand. And that's really what the focus is here at Reunion specifically, is the focus on what is the experience? What are the memories that you're building, whether it's with a buddy group, right? And it's just a couple of guys coming to get away and play golf, or it's a family coming to Central Florida for the first time and experiencing all of the things Central Florida has to offer, as well as even just events, right? We have a big event space. We cater to groups, whether they are golf tournaments or just corporate retreats. So there's a vast strategy when it comes to a property like Reunion that's complex. It's not your standard hotel, which then causes you to have to think outside the box. It causes you to have to put a strategy together that's really multi-pronged, as opposed to saying, yes, we just want to get people here and we want them to stay at our hotel. That doesn't work at Reunion, especially because we have really buckets of clients that are coming. We have groups, we have golf tournaments, we have event space, we have family, we have just buddy groups that are coming together. That's a guys weekend or a girls weekend, right? So there are a lot of different facets, and each one provides its own strategy and has its own strategy when you look at it. But the reality is it's all about how it makes you feel and the memories that are brought up and what's stirred up really inside. We're really reaching to someone's essence as a person and what makes them tick, as opposed to saying, yes, you like this bag, or yes, you like this golf club. That's good, and those are necessities. But what we're really creating and selling is that experience.
That leads me to my second question, and you were talking about a little about this second question, and it is about the messages and emotions. So, what kind of emotions or message do you aim to convey in your campaigns to connect with different type of guests?
So, two things that take place when we are looking about ad campaigns and what the messaging is. Two really things happen. It's one is, what season are we in?
Mm.
So in our particular business, again, as opposed to, I've worked at a couple of different properties over a 20-year career, right? So in relation to other properties, a lot of them is just very seasonal, right? It's just based on when families are traveling or not traveling and when meetings are happening or not happening. But we have a whole nother component to our business
Mhm.
where really our primary focus is golf, and we are golf centered. And golf in itself has its own schedule and its own seasonality, right? So it's not just, how do we reach families that are coming for the summer? That has, yes, that has a message and that has a time and a place. But if you've ever been in Florida in the middle of summer, it is too hot to play golf, right?
Correct.
So while golf is still our main focus, it does shift a little bit. So our messaging shifts with the season that we're trying to fill at the resort. So for us, right, golf is really key.
Yeah.
And our main golf season is from January 1 to about this time now, about May, the end of May. Then it kind of tapers off some. But our bread and butter and our primary focus is golf. So messaging when we are trying to push golf travel, which actually happens towards Q3 and Q4 of the previous year, right? Because you're not pushing for golf travel in the month for the month, you're really pushing for travel prior to.
Prior.
So while the resort as a whole from operations is like, oh my God, we're so busy and we're doing all of these things. And yes, marketing is busy, but we did all of that work to get to that point of time, right? Previously. Um, so the messaging changes. The messaging changes in Q3 and Q4 when we're driving for golf. It is really, come and play and stay and play like a legend. Our resort is the only place in the world that you can play 3 courses by those 3 legends at one place at one time, right? So that we have definitely something to offer, right? So, but the messaging for golf is very different from come spend an endless summer and create summer memories close to the theme parks. That is a message that we use. However, that message happens in the spring for summer travel.
Yeah.
So we get a lot of corporate groups really in, I would say, end of July through like October. So that messaging again is very different, right? It's very different. It's come have your event here, come bring your corporate retreat here, come have reconnect with your employees or your leadership team, right? Our property lends itself to have a variety of different accommodations as well. So we have 2 and 3 bedroom condos, which are villas, all the way to 15-bedroom mansions that house 30 people, right? So depending on what that client is looking for, really what does change the messaging, right? We have a lot of different messages because we have a lot of different products.
Correct. And it's a good point because I have already told you before, I am finishing my master in marketing, and
Mm-hmm.
we are doing an exercise. It's like a simulation in which we have to take into account the seasonality in
Right.
messages, in our projections, in everything. So that is a perfect point. I am just seeing and practice what I'm doing right now, in the
Yeah.
computer and it's not the real world, but I am just seeing that it was very similar.
Right.
Mhm. So I noticed that you have a strong experience in digital marketing,
Mm-hmm.
and I was impressed by your background in the
It's,
design work, um, internet marketing, and even in programming.
yeah.
Okay. So for a person like you with that background, so what digital tools do you consider essential today for effective executing and measuring marketing campaigns?
There's a variety of tools. I think the biggest tool, and it doesn't matter what system you use really, the biggest tool is data.
That
So whether you're using Google Analytics or you're using really Google Analytics, if we're looking at how our website is performing and how our ads are performing and where is our conversions happening and what are the key events that we're measuring metrics by, right? Google Analytics seems to be the one we rely on most. Um, that being said, there are so many great third-party companies out there that do take what's coming into to GA4, right? So what they take what's coming into Google Analytics and then translate it into a way that's easier to understand and digest the information, right? So we have like some Looker Studio reports and things like that. It just makes it easy to digest what is essentially in GA4. But when we're looking at conversions and we're looking at how we measure advertising today, we spend a lot of time in Google Analytics.
Yeah.
Just it's so much time. And whether it's measuring, like I said, our campaigns and how they're doing and what's happening there, or just measuring website traffic and looking at, geolocations and where our
Mm.
site's coming from and how does that translate to what we're seeing on the books. That's another thing, right? So like, and we've got some custom reports that we created and we run every week. We run them weekly. So we run a weekly report of how many nights people are searching for, right? And it's important because the reality is some times of year we have longer stays, and they're 7 to 10 day stays, and then we've seen a really big shift in trend now where we're seeing shorter stays, and we're seeing our booking window used to be like 60 days out. We're seeing now people book in the month for the month, which is different in comparison to previous years, right? And I think if you've spent some time in the industry, and as you spend time in the industry, it's one of the things that you learn, that these trends tend to change. And it's about making the right decisions with the data you have today that affects your business tomorrow.
Correct. Yeah. So data is right now like a genius of making decisions.
It really is. It for a couple of different reasons, right? Data takes your emotional feeling out of it, which is kind of crazy considering that we're marketing appealing to people's emotions. But
Correct.
you can't make emotional decisions when you're managing budgets of $1 million.
Correct.
It can't be emotional. It has to be data driven. There has to be something of substance that can back that up. Um, but in that same token, right, we're using AI, we're using other digital tools to help make those decisions. We have all different kinds of like geo targeting. We've got a tool right now that we're just finished launching and setting up. And what it does is it takes visits to our site and then visits to our property and says, okay, all of these IP addresses, where do they go back to? And so we can target market specific zip codes in specific communities of maybe more affluent guests, right? So that those are the ones that sometimes have the disposable income to come and play golf at $300 a round. That it's a very specific niche when we're looking at who our ideal customer is and coming up with that persona and how do we reach them, and then knowing how much money we're putting to each ad and in each segment, right? There's all kinds of advertising that happens. It's not just let's set a Facebook ad and forget about it, right? There's top of funnel, there's brand recognition, there's bottom of funnel, there's middle of funnel, and all of those things. Ultimately, we want them to lead to conversion, but they don't all convert at the same time.
Yeah, that's correct. So now I have a more personal question.
Sure.
So, have you ever led a campaign that didn't achieve the expected results?
Yes. Uh, Marketing is a lot of trial and error.
Correct.
Marketing is a lot of trial and error. It's also about risk assessment, right? It's we Part of your budget has to be allocated for new things, and new things don't always work. A lot of it is let's throw it up and see if it sticks, right? It's the spaghetti model, right? Like let me see if it sticks, and if it sticks, okay, maybe it's working, right? um but it's about finding that balance, right? And it's about learning how much risk you have. And it's almost like, it's like going to a casino, right? That's the way I can equate it. Is you go to the casino, you don't know if you're going to win, and if you win, great, and if you don't, you should go with the mentality of this is the money I have to lose, and I'd be okay with losing it, right? It really winds up being like that a lot of the times. There are definitely, I mean, I've been in marketing as a whole, I've been in marketing more than 20 years, right? And so I've spent about half of that time in hospitality. Things don't always work. The market changes, things shift, you have to make adjustments. um, One of my mentors early on in my career in hospitality, we would joke that change was the only constant, but it was true. Change was the only thing that happened all the time. And so you have to be willing to adapt, you have to be willing to make those changes when needed, right? Because not everything is always going to work, but it's how you adapt to them and knowing that not everything is going to work.
Yeah, that leads me perfectly to my next question. And thanks, Christina.
Yeah.
So, from your perspective, what emerging trends are you seeing in tourism and hospitality marketing over the next few years?
It's hard. A lot of it too has to deal with the climate, right? So the political climate plays a factor. Last year was an election year, and everyone freaks out in an election year, and rightfully so. Tourism is affected by political climates. You don't have to have an affiliation, but your business is ultimately affected by it, right? So it changes, trends change, markets change. Right now, for instance, we're seeing a decline in international travel to Central Florida. but we're seeing an uptick in domestic travel. If you would have asked me a year and a half ago, I would have said international travel is key. It was, and it has been for a long time. We're also seeing, again, a lot of things are affected, right? So we knew that coming into a new election year, a new cycle, a new administration was going to ultimately have an effect on hospitality, especially because hospitality is one of those industries that is a nice to have, right? It's not like we're going to buy eggs. Everybody has to buy eggs, right? Like dairy is effective, but it's one of those things that you need. What we're selling really is a dream. We're selling a luxury vacation that already seems out of reach to some people, right? And so it's a different experience. I think really it's, again, going back to data will continue to be key, and how we make and how we shift and how we strategize moving forward. We ourselves internally have seen a huge shift, right? We are not seeing a lot of Canadian travel. That was a big part of our success in the last 2 years. And again, given a political climate and landscape and what it looks like, it does expect to change. So I think in the future, I definitely think data will continue to be a strong point of kind of grounding your strategy. AI plays a big role. There are great tools out there. There are some that are not so great, but again, it's how you leverage them and what you're putting into them. AI is constantly a learning tool. We use it a lot here on property, and in our marketing and in a lot of our efforts. The reality is that it's a great tool, but if you don't feed it the correct information, it's not going to give you what you need either.
Correct.
So it's about, I definitely think technology is going to play a big role. Technology has definitely changed. I mean, when I started my career, a website was a big deal. No one kind of even knew how to build them yet, or how we were going to use them for marketing, or how it was going to change the landscape. We were still doing direct mail pieces. That was the bulk, right? You would buy a mailing list and you'd send out 50 million postcards and hope you got some business out of it. Not that direct mailing has completely gone away, but the shift in the landscape over a 20-year period is, I mean, there was no social media then. You had to learn it. So those of us that have been fortunate enough to start our career in a point where we have been a really key in that pinnacle shift of going into a digital space is really different. It's really different. So I think moving forward into the future, I think technology will continue to play its role. AI definitely will be on the cusp and even further ahead than where it is now. A lot of questions in the space in general and the industry in general are come from, how are we leveraging technology? How are we leveraging AI? Who's using AI? Who's, the race is really who is going to become proficient at AI the fastest and have the most growth and see the most gain from it. And so those are all things that you have to learn. Like I said, I mean, I started this career 20 years ago and AI wasn't even a thing that we imagined. Now I walk into my house and I ask, Alexa to turn the lights on, right? So it's definitely different. It's definitely different. We're in a different space, and a lot of it is unknown and uncharted, but it goes back to having to take risk and seeing what works for you, and then making decisions quickly to where you can say, okay, you know what, this is working, let's do more of it. This is not working, let's reevaluate it. And so that will continue to be really, something that we see in the future. I mean, here in Central Florida as a whole, we are seeing travel pick up. It definitely doesn't look as grim for our property, in comparison to some of our other, competitors that we've talked to. And it's a small industry. Tourism and hospitality is huge, but it really is small at the same time. You get to know who's your partner around the corner, right? And who is your counterpart and who's your competition. And it's ever changing and it's fast paced. But at the same time, we've watched some of our comps that really struggle where we didn't feel that struggle, right? Like right now, for instance, they're not seeing as much of an uptick as they would have liked to have seen with the opening of Epic Universe. I think a lot of people played into, putting all their eggs in one basket, but we didn't really do that. We promoted it and we did use it some, but I mean, we saw an increase of 20% in our vacation rentals over the summer, year over year. And last year we had an okay year. This year we're having a better year. So we have, I mean, we have a couple of weeks in the summer that we don't have any vacation rental homes available. But not necessarily the same story for some of our, competition that's out there. So, but it goes back to, leveraging trends and leveraging data and making decisions early on. We decided in January that we were going to push summer travel then. Well, we were ahead 3 months ahead of everybody else that just started to push summer travel. So,
Yeah, I am in completely agreement with you that we can't just look ahead without taking into account the technology
yeah,
variable that is going to be present in any sector.
yeah,
Doesn't matter. So, and just to conclude this conversation, I have my final question.
sure.
It is an inspirational question, okay?
Okay,
Personal development perspective.
sure.
So, what advice would you give to a young person who wants to build a career in marketing?
Stay hungry. Stay hungry. Honestly, a lot of the success that I've had was because I was eager to learn. And I was really a sponge early in my career. I actually started in marketing. I was 17. I hadn't even graduated high school yet. And I kind of just landed in it, honestly.
Oh,
I kind of just landed in it. I had some computer experience. I had some graphics experience, and one of the I used to babysit for a dentist, and he said, "Well, I know you know how to do these things on this computer. Can you help me?" And I'm like, "Sure." I didn't think I was going to make a career out of it at the time, but a lot of what I learned along the way was I had really great mentors. I did have really great mentors. Um, so I would say, you're the sum of the five people you surround yourself with. That's one piece of advice I would give is if your closest group of friends or people or colleagues are not someone you want to aspire to be, then you're in the wrong group. You're in the wrong group, right? You've got to surround yourself with people that are going to elevate you and that are going to encourage you to move forward, that are going to encourage you to learn more, that are going to encourage you to be the best version of yourself that you can be. I definitely think don't ever stop learning. Um, don't ever stop learning. Learn as much as you can. Continue to learn as much as you can, even when you don't think you have anything left to learn. The reality is, like I said, I came from a different time where the internet wasn't a thing. Like
mm,
it was, but it wasn't, right? It was, but it wasn't. And so when I started my career, essentially, it was a lot of print, a lot of billboards, a lot of mailing. And so, I mean, I look back and I take a step back and I'm like, what if I didn't learn to move with the times, right? What if I didn't learn to code? What if I didn't learn email marketing? What if I didn't learn social, right? What if I didn't learn those things? I would be obsolete and probably out of a job at this point, right? Because you have to continue to learn. The space, especially in marketing, is always changing. You don't necessarily have to be the trendsetter, but you've got to stay on top of the trends. And so I think those two things are really important is, watch who you surround yourself with and always be willing to learn because there's always something to learn.
yeah, thank you so much because I like that vision, especially because it's not a it's not from an ambitious sense, it's from the resilience sense.
Yeah,
We want
absolutely.
resilience from acknowledged focus, okay?
Right.
So always hunger to learn more and to just to gain more knowledge.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you stop learning, then you have nothing left to give, right? That's the other part, right? When you've spent so much time in a career in a singular industry or in a singular career, you really get to a point where you're now the mentor, right? You now have something to give back, and you look at the people that have helped you get to who you are and help shape who you are. That whether good, bad, or indifferent, right? Not everyone is going to work at a place that they absolutely love, and you'll make changes in your career over time, and it's expected, right? But at the end of the day, when you look at how you've gotten to where you are today, it's because definitely you've had people pour into you and lift you up and encourage you and mentor you, and so you get to a point where you have now something to give back, right? And so I've kind of reached that point in my career where, and I reached it probably 5, 10 years ago, but where I've had something to get back, and I've become a mentor to several people. I sit on the board at Osceola Technical College, right? It's for people taking digital media class and getting their certification. And so being able to go back in there and speak and give real life experience and examples is, one of the ways that you think an industry that has really given you a lot to be grateful for.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Christina. Thank you so much for being here with
Yeah,
us
my
today,
pleasure.
for share your time with us or your insights. I'm pretty sure this interview will be very helpful for anyone looking to learn from someone that has a real world experience in this field. Thank you so much again, and for being here with us today.
My pleasure, and best of luck. Congratulations on getting your master's.